Good afternoon, everyone. Hope your start of the week is going well. Once again, this is Dave Collins from Single Point IT this afternoon. I'm also the Director of Learning Innovation at Innovara School. And this afternoon, we're going to have an in-depth look at Google presentations. We're not just going to skim over the top of it. We really want to have a look at how we'd help a user who just really loves Microsoft PowerPoint, never wants to let it go, wants to stick to that forever and ever. And I understand that because it is a very powerful program, PowerPoint. But if you're working in a Google Apps environment, some of the things which are so powerful when it comes to collaboration and the capacity, having people working on the web rather than just working on a reasonably inexpensive piece of software. Now Google presentations realistically cost you nothing. I know Google Microsoft Word stuff isn't that expensive realistically now. It used to be quite a lot, but it gives you a really good option. So we're going to give a few people a little bit of time just to join. Once again, if you could click on the chat window on the right hand side of the page. If it's not there, you'd probably click on the blue icon on the left hand side of the page and just introduce yourself. So hi, I'm Dave Collins from Innovara School, and I work as the Director of Learning Innovation. I am a Google certified trainer. I believe that's what we're now called again. It's changed and shifted in the last month. So a little while ago, I was an authorized Google trainer. Now I think I'm a Google education trainer, and that's probably all I really care about at this stage. So I recognize that a lot of people might be watching this back later on in a broadcast for YouTube, and I'm happy for you to do that and contact me through any of the normal means from YouTube. Also, I want to say to those people who are watching this on delay, what would have been a better time for you to actually be part of this training? For example, you might turn around and say, yeah, look, it's just a lot easier for our staff to watch this training at 8 o'clock at night. I think that's what I'm going to try in 2 weeks' time, just to see if that works better for people, an 8 o'clock at night training session versus maybe this 3:30 in the afternoon, which is maybe this crazy little period of time. All right, well, let's get started. That's given people a little bit of time to join. I'm going to start sharing my screen so you don't need to see my head anymore. Okay, so we're sitting in Google Drive, and I'm wanting to use slides or presentations for the first time. So I click here and I can go Google Slides, and it'll bring me up a nice setup here straight away. Notice a couple of things just before we get going too far. It is going to ask you to pick a theme. Google's list of themes is pretty short. If you're used to using the Microsoft collection of themes, you'd know that there's hundreds of them, and then you can download more of them. So just for now, let's just grab the dark gradient. And notice there's a different format of screen that you can set it for. I don't know, it's one of my pet bug hates that I really think if you know you're going to be presenting on a widescreen screen, such as a television nowadays, you should actually select the widescreen. But obviously, if you know you're going to be working on a traditional projector 4:3, and then I recognize sometimes you don't know always what it is you're going to do. So let's just go widescreen 16:9. And then we'll click OK. And a lot of the similar controls that we're used to in Microsoft are here. So we have this particular template which has been set up straight away, which has 2 text boxes in it. Welcome to Slides, and Dave Collins, Innovara School. So traditional first title slide is what always pops up. I have my list of slides on the left-hand side, and I have the capacity to click in here and to choose new slides for a whole lot of pre-built formats. So traditionally, I think once I've had that welcome slide, I can click on the next one there, and that then gives me the capacity to change and edit the text boxes which are already there. Notice on the preview over here, we don't see anything. It's just a case that once I put a title in here, click somewhere else, that these slides then start to reflect the changes. One thing that it took me a little while to be, I guess initially, a lot of the time when you work in PowerPoint, the first slide in this format always is bullet points. And for some reason, Google don't do that, but it's pretty easy. Just highlight the text. And once you've highlighted the text. There are options across the top here. All these menus are contextual, but obviously there's a bullet list. If I just click on that one, it will turn it into bullets as we'd want. And there is the capacity to move some bullet points further in, make them sub-points, just like you would in a traditional Google presentation. So a number of options there, line spacing. Our font menu, so if we want to be able to change the color, if we wanted to be able, oh, that's a very ugly red, bold things, we wanted to say, no, we don't really want that font to be there. We can certainly choose a different font. I just need to have it selected before I change it, is the one key trip. So it's a pretty ugly font. That's still an ugly font. Let's go back to Arial. That will do for now. And I won't coat with a red for too long. So we'll set them on there. So a lot of the key setup that we'd be used to doing it is here. Notice if you click somewhere else, there is no menu showing. And the reason it's not showing is that what you were clicked on contextually doesn't need it. So if I click in this box, now that I'm in here, I've got that there already. All right, so let's go onto this one here, and let's say I want to insert an image, which is probably a pretty standard thing that people would want to be able to do. Let's go here to image, and just like in all the other Google programs that we have, here is a very standard setup here, including a search option. Results shown are labeled for commercial reuse and modification. So it's in this setup, it's really great for us. And if I want a picture of an emu, click on that and then press select. It will come in. Generally, it comes in as a really big object. So I find a lot of the time with Google, what I'm doing is that I am resizing and moving things. But all the normal resize controls, as well as rotation, are all available to you right there. Okay, so I think that's a very handy setup to be able to know how to do. Let's just work through here. If the layout that you have has already some text boxes on it, use it, but sometimes you want to put a special text box for a purpose. You can draw your own. I can write that as emu. I like the color of the font, black on that. I'm not sure why it's thinking that. So I can come over here and go, actually, no, I would like that to be white. And then I could move things around like that. Centering tool is available to us here. And I can move things down. And I can shift select two objects, and I have got the ability to group them. So now when I move them around, they will stick together. Notice in Google Slides, excuse me, as you move an object around, you'll get these red lines popping up, which are in a lot of other programs now. That indicates that that image is now centered. So for some reason, it slipped back to the other page. And then as I move it down the page, I can get the two lines there, so the whole image is centered and moved around. All right, so hopefully that helps with some of the basic controls. We've got an image control here, we've got some shapes and some line tools, which we'll have a look at just a little bit later on. All right, so if we have two slides, one of the traditional things that we'd like to be able to do is to have a transition. You know, it's nothing like having a cool transition. So there is an option here. Honestly, 99% of the time we shouldn't even bother with a transition, but I think possibly the best one that we can have is just basically the fade. That can be a handy thing to apply. And once you've finished playing with that sample, you can come to here. And so you've got your transitions here, which allow you to go, bang, I wish to fade from here to that side. You've got a few cool ones, but there are obviously not as many as Microsoft PowerPoint has. But the question is, how many cool transitions could you really use? I'm pretty certain that it should be limited to just a few. It shouldn't be anywhere near as many. If I click on this text here, you'll see that I have a number of options in here for animation. So when it comes to this, I have got controls to animate by paragraph. On clicks, I can have different fades in. There are a few here, not as many as the other ones, but if I press play, you can see that when it comes in, it should actually, on click, it will actually spin things in so that you get a feel for that. So if you're looking for the animation controls, not as obvious sometimes, but the easiest way is contextually on the box that you've got, right click, and then you should be able to go to animate and be able to take it from there. think that covers most of the really basic elements of it. How do we create a slide? How do we set up some things like that? I'd like to show you a couple of tools that were really handy for me when I was trying to adjust from being on PowerPoint side of things to slides. So one of the first things that I think we said very early on was that it is reasonably limited how many different forms of themes they have. So as soon as this pops up at the start, when I create a new one here, it comes up with this white theme, and there's only 20 themes to choose from. And I might want something a bit more. I might want one that is actually already a PowerPoint presentation. So what I've done is I saved a blank presentation earlier on today, got it into my Google Drive called Angles Theme. Now, this is a theme that comes from a PowerPoint. I haven't got any content in there, but basically what it's going to do is we want the theme that's within this one. Just click on it and press import. And initially I thought, well, that's just going to be great, but I've only got the front page. But no, when it imports a theme, it actually imports all the different possibilities. So when I come here, I have all the theme types that I had beforehand. And so if I'm really am grieving the loss of the themes that I actually need to use, by saving a PowerPoint presentation into my drive, I don't even need to convert it. I do have the option to be able to bring it in from there. I also do have the option to come in here and go insert and import slides, and they can come from PowerPoint presentations or they can come from Google presentations themselves. So let's just grab this one here, which is one that we use in my class. I know this one doesn't work perfectly, and I think sometimes it's fair to acknowledge that it's not 100% perfect when it comes to converting things. But here you can see we've got these ones here, and I might just grab the front two slides. So I'm going to shift select, hold down the shift key for the second one, and I've got a choice to keep the original theme or not. So I'm going to keep it for now. It takes a little bit of time to work, but then I have my two extra slides. Notice that this one, it just looks like more than anything, the text has actually gotten to the point where it's actually now just too big. And let's see, there is one that I saw the other day, which is underneath, here we go, font size. This is a good one. Shift, Command, and plus and minus. If I decrease that font size, I'll do that again. So font size and decrease, I will be able to get it to fit reasonably quickly into the space. Okay. Or of course I could just come here and grab it all and say 21 point font's too big. 18 would be a lot better. It does seem to be rescaling it to fit the size there, so maybe that's not the smartest way of doing it. Obviously I still too can change the theme and click on this and go, yep, I want that theme. And it will actually realign my elements from there. So I think that's a pretty good way of doing it. I believe there's a way of doing this now in Microsoft PowerPoint, but I've found that this method of embedding YouTube into this is phenomenal because the YouTube just plays within your presentation. So let's go in here and we're going to go insert video. Okay, and so once again, I've got the capacity to search for here. So I might just search for the Avengers theme. Avengers 2 trailer. So here we go. We've found the sections here. This is probably the one that we want. Select. And what happens here now is that we get a presentation which, when it's in that position, it just sits there. And if I press present, I won't be able to, I probably will have problems if I go full screen. Oh no, we seem to be all right. I get the YouTube controls there, which enable it to be straight away to work. I'm not going to press play because I'm pretty sure that's not going to broadcast very well. But the capacity to embed a YouTube into your presentation is fantastic. And I know I used to do that in PowerPoint, but quite often I had to actually make a copy of the video off YouTube, and I was probably breaking the law when I was doing that. And then I had to then find a way of then getting it into the videos. This way, as long as you've got a live internet connection, your YouTube presentations will always play. All right. I'm going to come back to this one here. This is one that I've probably only getting into and discovering a little bit today myself. But if we go here to edit, sorry, I got the wrong one here. If I go here to slide and go to edit master, what that brings up for us is a master slide and then all the different sub layouts that are available below it. So it says at the moment we're editing the dark gradient master used by all styles. So if I click on this first one and I come here and click in this text and I change the color of the text from being white to being this light purple, what will happen now is all of the slides that have that heading now I've got that light purple. Now it's probably not the easiest to see. So let's just do something a little bit more radical and go the darker purple. Right. So now on each slide, my purple has come across to all of them. But the same thing can be here on this slide. So if I come to this point and I go first level and I really do not like Arial as my font. If I click on that and I change that to be Calibri, and I can do that to more of these if I want. Probably only need to go down 3 levels. I'm unlikely to go too far. Now when I come back to these slides, that's changed the font. And when I add a new slide, it's actually working as Calibri is my default font. And I know that for some people, the capacity to set the which type of font you're using is also a really important thing to be able to do. So yeah, editing the master slide can be a phenomenal way of ensuring that you get each slide to be the way you want it to be. You still also have the capacity to come in here and edit the master and to even just move things around. So let's say I wanted a bit more of a margin. Notice how it just changed that straight away, but it's also changing over here, this one, and bringing it in. And that can be a really handy setup when you know you have to change the format of your presentation and you've had to do that at the last minute. You want to be able to change them all rather than having to change 20 slides. You come in here and you go to Edit Master. Now, for those of you who are really good at PowerPoint, you'd know this already exists in PowerPoint, but maybe if you're working in between the two, you might want to check that out in PowerPoint as well, because that can be also a very effective way of actually being able to move and get things into the position and the format where you want them to be. All right, well, I want to talk now a little bit about how I use it within the classroom, because what we've talked about so far is just completely functional and basically would be generic to anybody that's not really about teaching so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a blank slide here. I might get rid of this one just by right-clicking and deleting it. So I have a completely blank canvas just to play with here. So one of my favorite things at the moment with any Google apps whatsoever is Google Draw. And the nice thing is Google Draw is basically what PowerPoint is, or sorry, presentations is all the time. The capacity to jump text and do things really quickly and easy. So let's just have a quick look here. I was initially looking for going, where's the insert the drawing? I want to insert a drawing. And then I remembered everything is a drawing. So let's just put a text box on here. Hello. Might highlight that so you can see that a bit better in the color text that we want. All right, and maybe just a little bit bigger here. And let's center it. So I've got a piece of hello. All right, so now I can move things around on the page, and that's a really fantastic thing. Secondly, I want to show you this tool, which I think I've shown you a few times before, which is the research tool. So if I need an image of, let's say, Uluru, I would like to be able to bring that in, I can drag and drop straight out of here. Now, because I'm using the research tool, you will notice that it has automatically left in here the URL of where it has come from, so that we are actually keeping track of where the images are. If you want to remove that address, just to make your slides just a little bit, I mean, once you click somewhere else, it disappears. But if you want to, you can press remove there. So hello, Uluru, and then we might go Sydney Harbour Bridge. Okay, and that's a nice one. Put that there. It does seem that when I bring them in from this tool, sometimes they are a bit smaller, and that can be handy. So what I want to show you now is a really cool tool that I love in Google Drawings, which also works here directly in this, which is there are a whole lot of line tools, but there are some connector tools. And connector tools allow you to go, whenever I go over an image, now that I've got it selected, you'll see these purple dots. And so then I'm going to grab that dot and I'm going to come down here to that dot. And basically what that's now done for me is that if I click on this object here and I move it, the connection or the line between the two objects has stayed. Now, you might be having trouble seeing that because it is a very ugly color. Let's go and set that to be red, and let's give it an arrow so that it's got a direction path. And then I can do the same thing over here. Notice how I'm getting all these red lines appearing so I can get my alignments nicely set up. Once again, if I grab the connector tool and go from hello down to here. Now, unfortunately, I should have left it selected. There we go, pick that up. Now, if I move this one object, everything moves with it. And so when you think about mind mapping, when you think about all those visual literacy tools which just help students to organize their understanding and knowledge, this is an incredibly powerful way of helping students to mind map, to be able to set up presentations. But one of the nice things about this is that where it becomes more powerful than Google Draw itself is the simple fact that when I come to this, I can have multiple pages of drawings. So one of the things I initially wanted in drawings was, when can I get my second page of drawings? Well, just create a just create a Google presentation and you have multiple pages of drawings where you can do this. Remembering, of course, that you still have access to the share button. So this is a collaborative tool which uses infographics to be able to help students organize their understanding. An incredibly powerful tool that can be used in a lot of great and interesting ways. All right, kicking through that. All right. When I'm working in presentations, one of the things I can do is that I can go to a view, rather than having just this massive My Drive, here's a collection. If I know I want to find a presentation, I can go here to New tab, and instead of going drive.google.com, I go slides.google.com. And even though it re-changes the address, slides.google.com helps me the most. And here we go. Here's a visual look at all of the presentations that I have, including PowerPoints, so that I can then find them very quickly and go from there. All right, so that's a handy thing. All right, let me show you some of the things I've done with students in my class. Here is a slide selection called Good Photography. Good Photography is an outline for students of some of the things they need to do when they're learning to become good photographers, when I'm teaching photography. So basically in here, go read, and there's a link here to a website, which is the old Kodak guidelines for taking a good photo. And then there's activities in here. Summarize. There are 6 guidelines rules outlined on the former Kodak site. Write 1 to 2 sentence summary of each of them over the next 2 pages. Try to put them in your own words, but if you must, it's okay to copy and paste. I have a few students with some learning needs, which basically says that. So this is one that a student has already filled in for me. And some people would describe this as a web quest. Some people would describe it as a worksheet. But so this page, all it had was the guidelines at the top. And then the student has come in here and written 3 of the rules that came from the website in their own words. Then the other 3 rules are written here. And obviously I could be commenting, I could be leaving all sorts of things from there. But then because of the format of this, it's really nice. Sometimes when we get students to work in collaborative documents and they start to type up above another student, it keeps pushing the student's work down. If you're doing work in class, you could set each page to belong to a student, and when their work grows, it doesn't kick over. So you can see here the students then had to get a photo which showed an understanding of the rules that we were applying. So lines, balance. And while some of them aren't perfect, I look at some of this and go, now maybe there's more they could have understood here. This is not a bad way of getting students to be able to work together, to be able to complete stuff and go from there. So that's certainly one of the ways that I can do it. If I go back to my slides page, one that I have talked about in the past with people who regularly pay attention to these ones, and you could probably go back. Here's one that one of the junior school teachers put together a little while back. Well, this is a variation of it. And so we've got first page, we've got a whole lot of questions, resources which they can go to, and then there's questions that they can answer, but they get basically the space in here to be able to answer their questions. And in a sense, it's a worksheet, but it's quite a focused worksheet. One of the things I've always liked about Microsoft PowerPoint and now slides as well is that when you ask a student to write something, you are giving them a limited space. And a constraint can be very powerful in helping them be more concise, give them clear indication of how much work you need them to do when it comes to that. All right, well, let me show you one more thing, which I guess in a sense will become for advanced users, but it could be something that you might want to use in the future. So let's say I'm running some type of learning management site, LMS, I might be using Google Sites, a number of things. I'm going to use my blog today to do this. Let's say I'd like to take this fantastic presentation that I've put together and share it with the world so they can see it on a website without needing to open up slides or presentations themselves. If I come up here to the File menu and go Publish to the Web, I get a choice here to link or embed this into a website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose Small, and I'm going to choose Publish, and it's going to ask me, am I sure I want to do that? And I go, yes, that's great. You can do that. Now what it's done is it's created some web code. It's officially called Hypertext Markup Language, but it doesn't really matter what it's called. All you have to do at this stage is then copy it and take that code. So I'm going to drop into my blog, and if you haven't played with blogger.com, you'll see that this is a great way of being able to do it. So here's my new blog that I've created recently, Dave Collins 73, year I was born, at blogspot.com. And if I come in here, I'm going to look at one of the pages I've already created, which is this Hangouts on Air page, which is basically where I keep the archives of some of the ones that we've done recently. So here's Getting Going with Google Draw and WebQuest using Google Slides and Documents. So here I am in this page view. I know it's going to sound geeky, and admittedly at this stage of the presentation, I'm not stressed if you go, this is just a bit too far. Back here, I was able to copy some HTML code. Now, all I have to do is come in here and go, where do I want it to appear? Let's do it. Here are some of the seminars of the past, and paste in that code. And what then happens is that we get the slide set up here basically like it's a YouTube. So now, if I actually press play, every 3 seconds, it automatically transitions to the next slide. People have the choice from this to choose which side they want to jump to. They can go full screen, and they can then do a whole lot of other options here that come available with it. So if you had a PowerPoint presentation, to do that, you would take quite a bit of work, but at Google Slides, there is a button back here which simply goes File, Publish to the Web, and you could put a link to it, but you can also embed it, set the size, and get some code from there. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation on Google Slides. Obviously, if there is anything specific that you'd really want to have me cover in the future, could you please just make a comment in our Google Plus community for these presentations? There's a lot of power in it. I think, to be totally honest, in some ways, there's a few really powerful things which are missing from this that are in Microsoft PowerPoint. But to be honest, I've been using this almost exclusively for 12 months now, and it's very rare that I feel I actually have a reason to jump into Microsoft PowerPoint to achieve something that I couldn't do in this. I'm more likely to jump from out of documents into Word, to be honest. But because I have actually learnt to use this the way that I want to use it, I also now get the collaborative tools, which allows people to work together. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this afternoon's presentation, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again in 2 weeks' time.